6 from behind the arc, and 4 for 5 from the cheer destroyer.
Let's go.
Of these points, 21 of them came in the first half. He set a first half record for a playoff debut. The Spurs kind of went away from him in that third quarter just because how many defensive resources the Portland Trailblazers are sending his way. But then he was able to kind of pick things back up towards the tail end of the third, heading into the fourth, because for whatever reason, Diago Splitter, head coach of the Portland Trailblazers, decided to play small, throw a couple lobs here and there, and then Wemby is back to scoring as many points as he wanted to. For someone that a lot of people thought that playoff defense physicality was too much for him, a lot of people were concerned about type of defensive scheme, storing defensive wings like a Kamara or a Matisse Thybulle at Wemby to slow him down. Today he showed he doesn't care about none of that. There's not a single thing that you can do when he's playing like this. He was at the basket, he was effective, he was impactful, and what's even scarier is that he was hitting his threes. Again, 5 for 6 from 3, and in some of the threes that he was making, they were ridiculous. He was unconscious the way in which he was shooting. He had a movement corner 3 for one of his shots, pull up, like transition threes he was hitting routinely, and he had a bailout 3 in the, I think it was the fourth quarter, where he was just knocking it down. It was ridiculous. It was crazy. Also, handles was there, consistently kind of shifting the defense, and all around as a defensive player, he was fantastic as well. He ended up with 2 blocks, but because you have both Rob Williams and Clinging on the other side, really can't do much offensively. He was able to roam around and really disrupt a lot of things that were going on for the Portland Trailblazers. Also, I have to give credit where credit is due. Shout out to De'Aaron Fox. He played fantastic today. 17 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds, 7 for 15 from the field, 2 for 5 from behind the arc. Also, Devin Vassell, the shooter himself, 4 for 9 from 3. He was knocking them down. He looked pretty unconscious as well. Luke Cornett came off the bench, 10 points, 6 rebounds. He also played fantastic as well. A couple of things that I would love to see the Spurs clean up heading into Game 2. They got to get Stephon Castle in action in other ways. What Trailblazers decided to do was put Clinging on Castle, have him sit at the free throw line, and then roam and help Mari defending Wemby, because Castle is just not a shooter. That's concerning. That's actually a huge reason why I don't think they're going to win the next series. It's just because you have 2 backcourt players who are not good enough three-point shooters, and you have to get the reps to understand how to properly attack when teams are sagging off that far. So yeah, Stephon Castle was being defended like he was Ben Simmons. It was really, really tough to watch. But regardless, though, defensively, and I said this in my other video as well, defensively, the Spurs are going to win this game off of that alone. Off of that side of the court, they're going to win this game, this series. They're going to put this team away in 4 or 5 games. I just don't see how they can. The reason why I say it is because on the other side, the Portland Trailblazers were held to 98 points. First, actually, probably a negative. Shout out to Jenny Avdia. 30 points in what I believe was his playoff debut, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he didn't think it was. No, this is playoff debut. So, yeah, in Denny's playoff debut, 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. He shot 57% from the field, 2 for 5 from behind the arc. Denny was also great. Shout out to Denny. He was fantastic. He was amazing. The only issue, and also he did this with really little to no spacing. The only issue is, unfortunately, the rest of his team just wasn't there. And you are reading these numbers correctly. And actually, let me zoom in a little bit for people on YouTube just so they can see. 2 for 7 for Kamara. 2 for 7 for Clinging. 4 for 15 for Holland. 1 for 3 for Matisse. 2 for 6 for Jeremy Grant, 4 for 13 for Shaden Sharp. But what was far more damning was a three-point shooting. After Denny, 2 for 5, Kamar was extra fine. But 0 for 3 for Donovan Clingan. You're right. Clingan shot 3 threes today. You heard that correct. 1 for 7 for Jrue Holiday, 1 for 3 for Matisse, 1 for 3 for Jeremy Grant, 1 for 3 for Rob Williams, 0 for 4 for Shaden Sharp. And yes, you heard that correct. Again, between Robert Williams and Donovan Clingan, they attempted 6 threes, and they shot 1 for 6 with their 2 bigs. Part of the reason why Thiago decided to just try something different, and that was, hey, we're going to have to play small to stretch out the floor to remove Wemby from the basket. The only issue with this is that Wemby can also defend on the perimeter. You have players who just cannot break down the defense, even though Wemby is a suspect perimeter defender, especially in ISO at times. Trying to get the ball in action, swing, give it over to Wemby on the perimeter, guarding Tumani, and Tumani trying to create cross, 1 in and out, 2 in and out, spin, bring it back, don't get any advantage, and then still get a block off on Wemby. So if you're not able to create anything, and then on transition, you're back on the other side, easy bucket. If you're not able to create anything when you go small, it kind of then begs the question, why even go small? Granted, of course, Clingan and Williams, they are limited as bigs, but if you're not able to create any advantages by spacing out the floor that way, it's tough. And also, these shooters that they're going to run out there aren't real shooters. The Spurs will live. They will live with the idea of him leaving someone like Matisse Thybulle out there because you're still going to play one of them, or even Jrue Holiday. There's not enough quote-unquote shooters to really punish a small ball lineup with Wemby out there, so it's kind of tough. But speaking of Wemby, I don't even know where to begin, because there was moments like we saw throughout the season, especially in Game 1, where you had to just stop and ask yourself, what in the hell am I watching? What am I watching? What am I watching to see somebody like him come down, dribble between his legs, self-create 4-3? There was a moment where Wemby did a sham dive into a spin, and he got fouled, but they didn't call it. Wemby is now just standing around the rim, as I told plenty of people before, catching lobs, dunking. Wemby got corralled by 2 players, got hit in the mouth and everything, still went up strong and finished. There was a moment where he caught the ball in the air, was about to punch the living hell out of the ball into the basket, but he got fouled and didn't call it. 5 for 6 from 3. Some of which were self-created threes. Transition, pull-up threes. 35 points, and he did so while only playing 32 minutes. He had about 30 in 27 minutes. And again, I've said this before. Granted, the Blazers are not the best team. They're the reason why they were at the bottom of the 7th seed. Granted. But if you don't have personnel that can keep up with Wemby on the perimeter, and you also don't have personnel that can make him work defensively so he can just then roam around, bro, you're going to lose the matchup every single time. Every single time. But now, if he's this comfortable, this confident as a scorer, which I don't think he's going to shoot 5 for 6 from 3 every. But when he's in that mode, when he's able to hit his threes, when he's able to look off the dribble, when he's able to be corralled and still go up strong, when he's altering shots even if he's not blocking it, bro, that man is playing best in the world basketball. We'll see what he looks like as the series continues, but I don't think that he's going to really be put to the test, obviously, into the next series, where it's more than likely going to be the Denver Nuggets. But the way in which Wemby performs and he plays, those heights are best in the world. And tonight was another great display of it. 35 points. 3 shy for the second most points in the playoff debut from his teammate in De'Aaron Fox. 7 shy from tying Luka Doncic for the most in the playoff debut at 42, but broke Tim Duncan, the San Antonio Spurs record for the most points in Spurs playoff debut. It was a great game, an amazing outing. But people obviously will always question about if he can score. hopefully you all shut the fuck up and acknowledge that there's other things that he can do. But if you just want him to score, yes, he can do that. Yeah, he can do that. He can easily do that. Other game, Pistons and Orlando, 1-8 matchup. I thought Detroit was going to win this confidently. The reason why I thought this is because Paolo has been struggling, and Franz Wagner still is trying to keep up with who he once was, trying to get back to that point. And then you have bad three-point shooting across the board. Even though I know that Detroit struggles, Cade alone can play at a certain level that can get you a win against this team. Oddly enough, he actually played at that level. Cade finishes tonight with 39 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 48% from the field, 3 for 8 from behind the arc, and 10 for 11 at the free throw line. Cade actually played amazing. And crazy enough, on the other side, both Wagner and Paolo gave me better games than I was anticipating. So if they're going to play that well, you have to do something else to try to beat them. And they just did it. Orlando ends up upsetting the Detroit Pistons in game 1 of a 1-8 matchup, 112 to 101. Detroit continues a winless playoff home game stretch since 08. Disgusting. As we got good games from both Paolo and Wagner, Wendell Carter Jr., he pours in 17, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. We get Desmond Bain, he gives you 17, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. You get Jalen Suggs, 16, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. When you get that much production out of everybody, you are bound to lose that game. 2 things that plague Detroit tonight. Turnovers. Detroit turned the ball over 14 times. There's a lot of points off of those turnovers as well. And the reason why this happened, in large part, because Cade is really the only one who can go out there and create. And outside of Cade, the only other player who was in double digits was Tobias Harris.
What does shopping at Galco give you? Huge inventory of over 2 million electronic parts and products. Same-day shipping, field and in-house repair, internet and phone technical support, custom engineered builds, unprecedented customer service, and more than 40 years in the industry. You can get all of this and more at Galco.com.
Tobias scored 17, 8 points for Asar, 9 points for Duncan Robinson, 3 for Kevin Huerter, 3 for Isaiah Stewart, 3 for Karis LeVert, 2 for Ryan Hollins, and 6 points for Jenkins, shooting 1 for 7. These are things, however, I'm expecting. I don't think that there's that much offense, which is their biggest problem, and what's something they need to address. I don't know why they went a deadline with Tobias Harris. It's another reason why the whole Jaden Ivey situation is so damning to the team, because they needed him to translate into a legitimate offensive weapon. You should still get more than 8 points from your All-NBA big. You should be able to get more than 4 shot attempts from your All-NBA big.
There. That's what
Your All-NBA big should not be out there getting boxed up by Wendell Carter Jr. Jalen, respectfully, I'm gonna just call a spade a spade. Brother, you have to be better. There's just no other way around it. You're on a team right now where Cade is doing all of the heavy lifting. And this is the reason why many people thought if Charlotte got into the playoffs that it was going to be a problem for them. But, hell, Orlando might be able to do it as well. The defense is great. It's amazing. But at the end of the day, you have to put the ball in a fucking basket. And playing all that physical, tough shit that y'all get away with other teams, it's not going to really work against Orlando because they also play big. They also are a really physical defensive team when everyone is healthy. You can't bully around a bunch of niggas when everybody on the court is like 6'5" and taller except for Jalen Suggs. So you have to do more. And you're going to have to put the ball in the basket. That orange thing got to go through the hoop. And more importantly, brother, you got to look at the rim. You have to try to be aggressive. Back-to-back days where franchise bigs are not looking at the rim, bro. You should have something to your bag. You were doing it all second half of the season, especially when Cade was out. You got to be better. You got to be better. I ain't gonna lie, that was bad. 4 shot attempts in 32 minutes. That's terrible. You have to do better. You got to do better. The Pistons held to 40% from the field, 31% from behind the arc. You're now put yourself in the hole. Orlando feels confident. They can come in next game, punch you in your mouth. You don't know what the hell to do. You just don't know what to do. So, shout out to Wimby. Amazing game. Fantastic game. Jalen Duren, I need better out of you. Jalen, I need way more out of you. Like, wait. Quickly, Thunder and Suns game. Blowout. Dylan Brooks, 6 for 22. Jalen Green, 6 for 16. Even though D-Book, from a box score standpoint, it looks like he plays solid basketball. We watched his game. Just wasn't as aggressive as we would like for him to be. But, they got held to 84 points in playoff basketball in 2026. They got held to 35% from the field and 33% from the arc. And moreover, they just never stood a chance. 84 points in 2026 is fucking ridiculous. You had 83 shot attempts, and you only scored 84 points. And you took 18 free throws as well. And you turned the ball over 17 times. Shout out to Chet. Chet was great, 16 points. Shout out to J-Dub. He was great, 22 points. Everybody else kind of funneled in some points here and there. But Shea. 25 points, cool. 7 assists, cool. 4 rebounds, cool. 0 turnovers, great. Shea, 25 points, and you shot 5 for 18 from the field. 0 for 4 from behind the arc? 0 for 4 from behind the arc? I'm going to be honest with you. Bro. Be honest with you. Not only did it seem like you're a free throw merchant, I think it seems like you're a defensive teammate merchant. Nobody in the Big 4 or even Big 5 can go out there and play the way you doing sometimes in the playoffs, and your team still wins. No one. Not a single soul. That nigga Jokic cannot pull that off for a whole series. The same way you did last year against Memphis, you're doing it again. Jokic can't do that. Wimby can't do that. Luka certainly can't do that. Brother, you're this close. You were this close to trying to ascend in different conversations. Last year, you skated by a lot of criticism because you all won. This year, y'all are expected to win. Brother, if you play bad again, you're going to be in Harden talks. The only difference is you're going to have a team around you that defensively can still carry you through the finish line, even though you have bad shooting consistently. I don't think that this is who you are. I want to be clear. But I cannot deny what I saw last year as well. I can't deny it. We'll wait a little bit more. But you did this shit last year against Memphis. You did it again. And your defense is so phenomenal. The defensive personnel around you is so great that you can shoot 27% from the field, 0 for 4 from behind the arc. That whistle, my oh my. 17 trips to the free throw line. I'm going to leave it at that. And then, Celtics and Sixers, 123-91. If you're in the East, bro, man, y'all got to wrap this shit up, bro. If you're in the East, bro, do wrap it up, bro. Philly, I'm not expecting much. You don't have to be. Their best players match up. Their best players match up exactly with the Celtics' best players. Maxey shot 8 for 20 from the field. DJ shot 6 for 16. Paul George can only get 8 shots up. He did get to the free throw line fair, but PG 4 for 8. Nothing crazy. And then everybody else, 3 points for Bona, 10 points for Kelly Oubre, who shot 5 for 14, 1 for 6 for Barlow coming off the bench, 3 for 9 for Justin Edwards. Like, it's just a bunch of, like, it's like the team needs to have Embiid out there, and it's tough. It's tough that Embiid isn't playing, bro. It's just tough. It's another team that shot sub 40% today and 17% from behind the arc was just atrocious. Not gonna lie, I thought what we saw last night from Houston was bad. We had back-to-back, really three. We had 3 bad offensive games following the horrendous offensive game that we saw from Houston last night. I thought Houston was about to be by far the worst offense. But 91 points in 2026 from the Sixers, 84 points from the Suns in 2026, 101 and 98. All the losing teams today struggled to score 100 points. Matter of fact, only one team from a losing team today scored 100 points, and it was the Pistons, and they scored exactly 101 on the dot.
Sweet sublet. You'll rent this in like 2 seconds. Expensive to list it? It's free if you list it on leasebreak.com. And it works? Absolutely. They've been around for like 10 years. Does the company advertise? Not until now. Cool. Congrats to you and me. Where are the cameras?
Hi, buddy. Are we good? Oh my goodness, so scary.
Not gonna hold you though. If you in the East, bro, this shit sucks, bro. Jaylen Brown, 26. Jason Tatum, 25. Tatum went to 25, had 7 assists, 11 rebounds, 2 steals. And then Sam Hauser came in, he gave you 4 for 6 from 3. Derek White is disrupting everything around there, giving you 6 assists as well. Peyton Pritchard come off the bench, he give you 12. But the duo that is Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown basically giving you 50 respectfully between both of them, my nigga. Wrong button. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown combining for plus 50 is fucking raps, dog. If you are an Eastern Conference team and you cannot catch up, you can't catch up to the Celtics in a gap year, in a break year, in a year in which they literally say, hey, y'all got it. Tatum came back and he's already looking better than everybody else in the fucking East already. Bro, out of all the teams that are in the playoffs right now, Tatum is like already at worst a top 5 player in the East. That's crazy. That is insanity. And he was closing off the season looking really great. And he picked it right back up against the Sixers. Again, time will continue. Next round we'll get a little bit better competition. But if this is what Tatum can look like this early on, bro, East, wrap that shit up, bro. Wrap it up, bro. Yes, Boneless is right. The Eastern Conference got lapped by a nigga who took a year off from an Achilles injury and came back and is already better than niggas. That's crazy. That is insanity, bro. You got lapped by a nigga with an Achilles injury, bro. So we finally made it. 82 games down, postseason among us, so I deem it necessary to give you a playoff guide, if you will. A video breaking down all 20 teams that have a possibility of making a postseason appearance, things you need to know, what to expect. And at the end of the video, you will know who I believe are the true contenders and even the team that I believe is going to win it all. Now, please forgive me if I skate through your favorite team. I'm about to run through 20 teams in the NBA within a one video span, so it's going to be a lot. Quite frankly, some of these teams will be first-round exits, and we already know this. And actually, some of these teams, they don't even need to make a postseason appearance. They can just go on home. And because of that, I actually made a whole category for those teams. Go on home. The 2 teams I have in this category are the Miami Heat and the Golden State Warriors. And it's important because there's no real benefit for either one of these teams to make a playoff appearance. As I record this video, Miami's already been eliminated in the playing game after losing to the Charlotte Hornets, but quite frankly, Miami and Golden State find themselves in a very similar situation. Two teams that are a little bit older, that have playoff experience, already on their roster, so maybe the postseason doesn't even provide some younger players with playoff experience. But in much bigger picture, these are two teams that have been very desperate for some type of talent acquisition. Because of this, over the past like 3 to 4 years, both of the front offices have been trying to sell to their fan base that they're going to add some real talent to the roster, regardless if it's at the deadline or during the summer. And it's been everybody from Donovan Mitchell, Lauri Markkanen, and this summer it's going to be Giannis Antetokounmpo. Obviously, Giannis can't go to both of these teams. Quite frankly, I don't believe he's going to go to either one of them. So realistically speaking, the only way that these two teams are going to be able to find ways to add some franchise-altering talent to the roster is in the lottery, so they need to lose, go into the lottery, cross their fingers, and hope that they win the lottery and finish with a top 4 pick. I know the odds are against them, but quite frankly, there's a much higher chance of that occurring than them competing against the first and second best teams in their respective conferences. And oh yes, it's also important to note that more than likely, both of these teams are on a fast track to rebuilding anyway. So it would be great to have some young talent on this roster that's better than, I don't know, Jaime Jaquez and Peapods. Like, good players, but we need a little bit more talent. Now, moving on to the next category, and I like to call this category, just happy to be here. Teams that don't really have high expectations, but would love to get some postseason reps to some of their young players so they can potentially get to the bottom on if these players are really franchise guys. These teams are the Raptors, Sixers, Suns, Clippers, Hawks, Hornets, Blazers, and Orlando Magic. Yes, I know that's a lot of teams, but a lot of these rosters, really and truly, again, they're not expected to do much. They're going to have a very short-lived postseason run, and the only thing they're really going to get out of this is some reps for some of their younger players. A team that immediately comes to my mind are the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta's been fantastic this year, especially post-trading Trae Young. They pivoted in a new direction, and Jalen Johnson has really stepped into his own, becoming what many people will perceive to be a franchise player. Also, shout out to Nikhil as well. The second half of this year, he has been a dog. He's been amazing, and arguably even better than Jalen Johnson throughout stretches. However, there's obviously still going to be a lot of questions around the team led by players with this little postseason success. I know Nikhil has a lot under his belt within his years in Minnesota, but even in this new role, he just has not really seen what playoff defense will really throw his way. And it will be great to see what the rest of this roster is going to be able to piece together against a playoff-style defense. I love the run that they went on. Not the biggest fan of it because of the questionable teams that they were beating. And so, yes, it would be great to see what young players out in Atlanta post-Trae Young look like in playoff action. Another team that comes to my mind as well are the Toronto Raptors. Haven't spent that much time talking about Toronto on this channel, in large part because I really don't watch the Raptors as often as I probably should. But when I do tap in, I love what I've seen out of Scottie this season, especially defensively, and some of the growth and maturation that I've seen out of him as an offensive weapon. Brandon Ingram has really impressed me in the second half of the season defensively. But of course, there's still a lot of questions around the rest of the roster and what it looks like in playoff basketball. In particular, if Scottie can truly be a franchise player, an offensive engine for his roster, or how much more help he would put around him because of what he's going to take this player to. And of course, you're only going to get that from the rest. The Sixers are in a very similar situation. Unfortunately, they probably will not make a playoff appearance because of he was the sidelines for this playing game. However, DJ Edgecombe has quickly emerged as one of the more impressive young guards in the NBA. We already know what you're going to get out of Maxey. For better or for worse, we already know what you're going to get out of Paul George. But if Edgecombe can really step into a playoff setting, rise against really good defensive sets, he can really shift the direction of what this team is going to look like in the near future, because I just don't think that Paul George, even if he should be a part of the bigger picture at this point, he's clearly going to go in a different direction as he's a bit younger, more guard-oriented. If DJ can meet those expectations, even if they lose or even if they don't make a postseason appearance, that would be stellar. Another young guard that meets expectations, Jalen Green out in Phoenix. He decided to move in a different direction after the dismal postseason appearance of Jalen Green. It was so god-awful that the franchise decided that they would trade their young guard for Kevin Durant to thrust them into instant title contention. We'll talk about that later, but what effectively that's done for Jalen Green is put a massive question mark on his back to really wonder if he truly live up to the number 2 overall pick expectations that many people place on him when he entered the NBA. Unfortunately, we didn't see that much of Jalen this season dealing with injuries, but this is a team that needs desperately because they don't really have that much draft capital in the upcoming years. They need to swing and hit on some young talent, and Jalen Green could definitely be a franchise-altering player if he can meet those expectations. But the last time we saw him in the playoffs, it was pretty bad. Diddy Avdi up for the Portland Trailblazers, Darius Garland and Benedict Mathurin for the Los Angeles Clippers. Again, three players, guards that are looking to prove to their franchise that they are the direction that they need to be heading into. I think Denny's ceiling is much higher than a lot of the players that I've already talked about before. He's had an amazing year, going to receive all NBA honors, and rightfully so, regardless of the 65-game rule or not. He has been spectacular, and I do believe Portland has potentially found a true face of the franchise. Again, though, got to see what it looks like in the postseason. And then Darius Garland and Benedict Mathurin, they already have some postseason reps under their belt, but this time the responsibility that they're going to have with the Clippers is going to be a bit different from other situations that they were in before in both Cleveland and Indiana. And the reason for this is because it's clear the Clippers are going to pivot in a different direction after the season. They're not going to keep Kawhi. And so the Clippers, just like every other team that I've talked about, need to make sure that they have the true future of their franchise, the core that they can build around. And again, the only way that you can really get a better understanding of that is in the playoffs. Also, Darius Garland, similar to Jalen Green, has had questionable moments in the postseason. Now, the last two teams that I've been, tiptoeing around are the Orlando Magic and the Charlotte Hornets. And the reason for this is because I believe that they are on the opposite spectrum of all these teams in this grouping. When it comes to Orlando, we spoke about them briefly in my Paolo Banchero video, how disappointing this season has been, and quite frankly, just how bad Paolo has been as the first option, as the franchise player. Again, going into the postseason would really further answer some questions. There's already been rumors around the idea of potentially a star out in Orlando demanding a trade. If it is Paolo, quite frankly, I think they'll be better off without him because Franz Wagner, in my opinion, is just a better player. But again, going into the playoffs not only means that they will receive some type of clarity on the direction they should be going into, depending on how good or bad Paolo may play, as well as a couple of other pieces, but also I think that just making a postseason appearance at this point should be the threshold of what is considered a still pretty disappointing season to a complete disaster. But then on the other side of the spectrum, we have the Charlotte Hornets. And in my opinion, this team has a much higher upside than all of the teams that we talked about so far. I've actually made an entire dedicated video about the Charlotte Hornets and how they've been one of the better teams in the second half of the year. Matter of fact, many could argue they have been the best team in the second half of the season. Offensively, they've been sensational with the three-point shooting. LaMelo Ball has been electric. Con Knipple, though he had a really bad game, like a really, really bad game against Miami, he has still been very impressive. Brandon Miller has been sensational as well. And Big Musa on the boards not only has been active in giving this team extra possessions offensively, but then on the defensive side, he has really been anchoring what this team is able to do with their versatility and flexibility. This team is so electrifying and so intriguing to me that I actually believe if they do make it into the playoffs and match up with the Detroit Pistons, I would still favor Detroit, but I do believe they're going to be a hard out. There's a lot of things that Charlotte does that just reminds me of the Indiana Pacers, the pace, the three-point shooting, the excitement style of basketball that they give you, more ball handlers coming off of the bench now that Kobe White is on this roster as well. There's just a lot of positives that I love about Charlotte, and I can't ignore how well they played. And so for a team that's played this well, got to see in the playoffs, though. I need to see playoff basketball from Charlotte for me to commit to the idea of them being a real threat, not just this season, but beyond in the Eastern Conference, because it could look really, really, really scary. Moving into the next section, we have the pretenders. Teams that I just don't see any possible way that they could find themselves competing at the highest of levels with the best teams in the postseason this year. It doesn't matter if it's a hot stretch. It doesn't matter if the ball bounces in their fashion. And I'll go as far as to say, even if a team is dealing with a pretty significant injury, I could still see these three teams losing to some of the better teams ahead of them. And those three teams are the New York Knicks, Los Angeles Lakers, and the Houston Rockets. The Lakers are pretty self-explanatory without Luka and Reeves. It just doesn't really make any sense for this roster to be able to compete at a high level. The Lakers at times have been overly dependent offensively from the excellence of Luka Doncic. His ability to be one of the league's greatest passers and playmakers in NBA history have really transcended offense that should have clear limitations and thrusted them into top 10 status for a majority of the season. Reeves being down as well means that there's another scoring punch that just won't be there, who can also pass and play make. And when both of them are on the floor, that's when the Lakers are at their best. And so, theoretically speaking, you could easily argue that two of the best three players for the Lakers are just not available. LeBron has been really great over the past couple of games in the absence of both Luka and Reeves, but asking a 41-year-old to go into a series against the Houston Rockets that has a really great defensive team, asking him to kind of manipulate the defense enough throughout a 7-game series, I just don't see it happening. And yes, there's already been news broken that even after Luka went overseas to try to get this very interesting hamstring surgery or some type of recovery to hopefully have him come back on the floor much sooner, the timetable for him still is unchanged. So more than likely, I just don't expect Luka to make an appearance against the Houston Rockets. Speaking of Houston, the Rockets are another team that I just don't see making a postseason run. Since the beginning of the season, we knew that the Rockets going into a year without a point guard after Fred VanVleet went down for the entire season was going to be very damning, but I don't think many people thought it was going to be this bad. The Rockets still struggle with any type of ball handling, self-creation, and all-around table setting, and when you add those struggles with really bad floor spacing as well, it is a recipe for disaster. Kevin Durant has been taxed with the responsibility of being the primary ball handler, passer, and playmaker for this team, and it's clearly just not his strong suit as an offensive weapon. So Ime has no other choice but to go to other players like Reed Shepard, who is a much better passer and ball handler than a lot of other options on his team, but is by far the weakest link defensively, and in playoff basketball, he will be picked on routinely, so then it questions how often can he even be on the floor. And then you have Amin, who has also picked up some ball handling and passing responsibilities, but with his limitations, regardless if the ball is in his hands or not, people are not going to sit there and spend that much defensive resources trying to go after someone who literally does not score beyond like 8 feet on the basket. So yeah, it's going to be really, really, really nasty. I do believe they're going to make it past the Los Angeles Lakers just because at this point the Lakers, they don't have enough firepower to overcome their defense, and they're also still really good at grabbing the glass. But then second round going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that will already leave you traumatized because of their defense and really just strip the ebbing living dickens out of any ball handler. My goodness, going up against that team with no ball handler? Yikes. So yeah, it's going to be a quick second round exit for them. And finally, you have the Knicks. We talked about them recently, so make sure you go check that video out. But just quickly, you have a team that features both Jalen Brunson and Carl Towns defensively. We saw those two be exploited defensively all series long against the Pacers last year. Sure, a team like that doesn't exist this season, but I still believe that any competent roster in the Eastern Conference will do the exact same thing and pick on them routinely. Add on top of the fact that Towns openly acknowledged that he still doesn't know his role offensively, and then you have a recipe for disaster. If the Eastern Conference was shaking up how many people thought it was going to be in the beginning part of the season, where Garland was still going to be out in Cleveland and Tatum still didn't make his return, maybe I could see the Knicks making their way to a conference finals appearance. But at this point, the conference has gotten significantly better throughout the year. So I don't see how the Knicks could even put themselves in conversation with the next two sections of classes I have for playoffs. So there's that. Now, moving into the next section, we have what I like to call one piece away. Teams that are really close to being contenders, and if they get hot, they start making their threes, or they make a couple of defensive stances, they can really push a couple of these ball clubs to the brink of elimination, and maybe even pull off a few upsets as well. But it seems like there's just one piece that they're missing to really put them over the top. These three teams are the Detroit Pistons, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and
Hey, my treat today.
You want to get shot, Fred?
The team discovered you're stuck in the bed. I'm like, please. You look rad.
Discover is accepted at 99% of places nationwide.
Totally.
Cavaliers. This season has been remarkable for Detroit. A 60-win season, one of the top 3 years in franchise history, and the Pistons, regardless of their offensive limitations, can win basketball games just strictly off of their defense. It's a huge reason why, even in Kate Cunningham's absence, they still looked really great. And shout out to Jalen Duren, who is really improved as an offensive player. His self-creation in Cade's absence has been very impressive, and just someone who is constantly attacking the offensive glass, giving himself and his teammates more offensive opportunities is certainly welcome for any team in the NBA, but especially for one that really lacks the offensive talent around Cade. And because of that limitation alone, it's a huge reason why I have real concerns for what the Pistons will look like, regardless of the standings that they find themselves in by the end of the season. Cade has been great this year, definitely seeing noticeable improvements as a passer and playmaker, but his limitations as an overall scorer are very hard to deny. He still doesn't get downhill as much as I would like. He settles for a bunch of tough middies, and even though he does make them at a respectable rate, in playoff basketball, it's way more important to just shift the defense and get quality looks for your teammates. The problem with this, though, is that the lack of three-point shooting around Cade makes that task even more difficult, and teams will certainly throw multiple bodies at Cunningham to try to poke at his dribble or just make things far more difficult for him as a scorer, passer, and playmaker. Yes, I do again believe that Jalen Duren and his defense can provide a little bit more possessions for this team offensively to kind of help them out, regardless if it's getting stops or offensive rebounding. But going up against a team like the Boston Celtics, a roster that can really stretch you out at every single position, it's not only going to make it more difficult for them to close out possessions, but also just make it difficult for them to defend at the same level that they normally do against several other teams in the NBA. So, as much as I really do love what I've seen out of Detroit this year, and I would probably go as far as to say they have a really good chance to make a conference finals appearance, I just don't believe that they'll be able to beat the Boston Celtics in any type of format, regardless if their defense is amazing or not. So even though I do believe that there is a really good chance that they'll make the conference finals, I just believe that by the time they get to the conference finals, there will be a clear separator between them and the Boston Celtics and what they're going to be able to provide, which is why I feel like they're just one piece away. If they had another creator on that team, I do believe it would be very interesting against Boston, but without that other creator, it's just way too much on Cade Cunningham's shoulders to kind of create for everyone else. The next team on this list are the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would dare say that out of all of these teams in this tier and below, and even maybe a team ahead of them as well,